The story begins not with spectacle, but with an ordinary workplace in the United States, where people from different countries shared desks, elevators, deadlines, and quiet routines. In that environment, cultural differences were present, but rarely discussed, overshadowed by work schedules and professional roles. Among those moving through that space was Francis, a Filipino employee who had grown up balancing two worlds, his Filipino heritage and his American upbringing. Across the same corridors worked Liliana, an American manager with roots in El Salvador, shaped by migration, responsibility, and leadership. Their first encounter was brief and unremarkable to anyone watching, yet it carried a private significance neither could explain at the time. In a setting defined by hierarchy and professional boundaries, something subtle emerged, not dramatic or impulsive, but deeply intuitive. This was not a story driven by chance alone, but by years of shared values, unspoken respect, and quiet observation. What followed would unfold over decades, not days, challenging assumptions about power, culture, and love, while revealing why Filipino men are increasingly seen not as stereotypes, but as partners defined by loyalty, warmth, and emotional steadiness in an often fragmented world. Francis did not arrive in the United States chasing romance or advantage. Like many Filipinos abroad, his focus was stability, responsibility, and long-term purpose. Raised with an emphasis on respect for authority and dedication to work, he carried those values into every professional space he entered. Colleagues noticed his calm demeanor, his attentiveness, and his habit of listening before speaking. These traits rarely draw attention in fast-paced environments, yet they quietly shape trust. Liliana, accustomed to managing teams and making difficult decisions, observed something different in him. His professionalism was not performative. It was grounded in sincerity. He did not seek validation or favor, nor did he blur boundaries. Over time, this consistency created a foundation of mutual respect. Their relationship did not begin with flirtation or dramatic gestures, but with reliability, showing up, doing the work, and treating others with dignity. In a world where workplace relationships often falter under imbalance or ego, theirs moved slowly, guided by patience. That pace would later become one of its greatest strengths, allowing something genuine to grow without pressure or spectacle. Liliana's background added another layer to the story. Born into a Salvadoran family and raised within American culture, she understood migration, adaptation, and the weight of responsibility from an early age. Leadership, for her, was not about dominance, but about accountability. When she first noticed Francis, it was not his position that stood out, but his presence. A simple smile, a quiet confidence, and a sense of groundedness made an impression that lingered. The coincidence of his name matching her father's carried emotional resonance, though she did not assign meaning to it immediately. Instead, she watched how he treated others, colleagues, subordinates, and supervisors alike. Over time, she recognized qualities often overlooked in modern dating narratives: humility, emotional availability, and respect without submission. These traits, deeply rooted in Filipino cultural upbringing, challenged assumptions she had absorbed from Western dating norms. Rather than demanding attention, Francis offered consistency. Rather than asserting dominance, he showed partnership. This contrast would slowly redefine what attraction meant, not as excitement fueled by unpredictability, but as security built through shared values and mutual regard. Their professional roles complicated everything. Power dynamics in the workplace leave little room for emotional vulnerability, and both were acutely aware of the risks involved. Any misstep could damage reputations, careers, and trust. For years, nothing was spoken aloud. Instead, their connection matured through everyday interactions, problem-solving, collaboration, and mutual support during stressful moments. This restraint was not driven by fear, but by respect. Francis understood boundaries instinctively, shaped by cultural teachings that emphasize propriety and patience. Liliana, equally cautious, recognized that genuine character reveals itself over time, not through declarations. When feelings eventually surfaced, they did so naturally, without secrecy or manipulation. What emerged was not rebellion against professional norms, but a transition built on transparency. Their decision to pursue a relationship was careful, deliberate, and rooted in equality. It defied the narrative of impulsive workplace romance, replacing it with a model grounded in accountability. This approach would later define their marriage, reinforcing why Filipino men are often described as steady partners who prioritize long-term harmony over short-lived excitement. Marriage did not erase their professional identities. Instead, it added complexity and depth. Even after decades together, Liliana remained Francis's boss, a fact they acknowledged openly without embarrassment or defensiveness. This dynamic worked not because of hierarchy, but because of trust. Francis never sought to undermine her authority, nor did Liliana use her position to control him. Their partnership demonstrated a rare balance of professional respect paired with personal intimacy. Over time, colleagues noticed the absence of tension where others might expect it. Decisions were made fairly, disagreements handled privately, and boundaries maintained with care. Their relationship became an example of how power does not have to corrupt connection when both parties are anchored in mutual respect. This balance mirrored Filipino family values, where cooperation and emotional intelligence often outweigh rigid roles. Rather than competing, they complemented each other. Rather than proving dominance, they prioritized stability. These qualities extended beyond their marriage into their broader families, influencing how relatives viewed intercultural relationships and challenging stereotypes about masculinity, authority, and emotional expression. Family acceptance played a crucial role in strengthening their bond. Liliana's mother embraced Francis immediately, drawn to his warmth and sincerity. There was no resistance rooted in race or nationality, only curiosity and affection. This openness reflected shared values between Filipino and Latin cultures, family closeness, hospitality, and emotional expressiveness. Francis, in turn, experienced similar acceptance from his own family, who viewed intercultural marriage not as a threat, but as an extension of shared humanity. Over time, their union inspired younger relatives to approach relationships with fewer cultural barriers and greater openness. What began as a personal connection gradually influenced broader family narratives, encouraging acceptance rather than caution. These ripple effects matter because they reveal how individual relationships can challenge inherited assumptions. In this case, the Filipino emphasis on respect, patience, and family cohesion became a bridge rather than a divide. Love was not framed as conquest or escape, but as partnership built on shared responsibility. That framing explains why such stories resonate globally, particularly as people reassess what meaningful relationships look like in an increasingly disconnected world. When the couple returned to the Philippines together, the experience added emotional depth to their story. For Francis, it was a reconnection with heritage. For Liliana, it was discovery. The landscapes, particularly the islands, contrasted sharply with her expectations, revealing a beauty shaped by nature rather than development. More striking, however, was the warmth of everyday interactions. Strangers offered guidance, conversation, and care without expectation. This sense of communal awareness reinforced values Francis had carried abroad but rarely articulated. Liliana recognized familiar patterns from her own upbringing, yet noticed a softness she found distinctive. The Philippines did not feel foreign, it felt relational. This environment illuminated why Filipino men often develop strong emotional intelligence, raised in cultures where empathy, humor, and shared experience are woven into daily life. Observing these dynamics firsthand deepened her understanding of Francis, not as an individual exception, but as part of a broader cultural fabric that prioritizes connection over status. Cultural adjustment within their marriage was never one-sided. Both partners adapted, not through sacrifice, but through curiosity. Shared histories of Spanish influence created unexpected overlaps between Filipino and Salvadoran traditions, from food to family structure. These similarities eased integration, reducing friction often associated with intercultural unions. Their American upbringing added another layer, providing a shared reference point for navigating daily life. Rather than clashing, these identities intersected fluidly. Decisions were made collaboratively, with space for disagreement and compromise. This balance counters the misconception that successful intercultural relationships require one partner to abandon their identity. Instead, their story shows how respect allows identities to coexist without hierarchy. Filipino masculinity, often misunderstood as passive or submissive, emerged here as emotionally resilient and adaptable. Francis's willingness to adjust without resentment demonstrated strength rooted in confidence rather than control. This model resonates widely, particularly as global conversations shift toward redefining partnership as collaboration rather than dominance. Food, often a symbol of cultural identity, became both a challenge and a point of humor. Liliana's dietary preferences contrasted with traditional Filipino cuisine, requiring compromise and creativity. Rather than conflict, these differences became opportunities for learning and laughter. Francis embraced flexibility, recognizing that adaptation did not diminish authenticity. This openness reflected a broader Filipino approach to relationships prioritizing harmony over rigidity. Over time, shared meals became less about conformity and more about care. These small negotiations illustrated a deeper principle: love expressed through consideration. In many cultures, masculinity is associated with inflexibility, yet here it appeared as attentiveness. Francis's willingness to adjust contradicted stereotypes and highlighted why Filipino men are increasingly appreciated as partners. Their approach reframed compromise not as loss, but as mutual investment. These everyday moments, often overlooked, formed the backbone of a marriage that endured decades without erosion. Language and humor further strengthened their bond. Francis's fluency in Filipino languages connected him to heritage, while his comfort in English allowed seamless communication. Liliana's willingness to engage, even playfully, with unfamiliar linguistic challenges reflected openness rather than insecurity. Shared laughter became a bridge across differences, reinforcing intimacy without requiring perfection. These exchanges mattered because they revealed comfort with vulnerability. Neither needed to perform cultural mastery to belong. Instead, belonging emerged through effort and goodwill. This dynamic mirrors Filipino social norms, where inclusion often depends more on intent than expertise. Such environments foster emotional safety, a trait frequently cited by partners of Filipino men. In relationships shaped by safety, growth becomes possible. This emotional foundation explains why such partnerships endure, resisting the pressures that dissolve less grounded connections. Their story gained meaning not because it was dramatic, but because it was sustainable. Over 23 years, their relationship evolved without losing coherence. Careers changed, children were raised, and identities matured, yet the core remained intact. This longevity challenges narratives that prioritize intensity over stability. Filipino men are often described as family-oriented, and here that value manifested not as obligation, but as choice. Francis's commitment was not loud, it was constant. That constancy allowed trust to deepen over time. In a global context where relationships often fracture under pressure, such steadiness stands out. It invites reevaluation of what winning means, not conquest or visibility, but endurance built on care. The broader significance of their relationship lies in representation. Stories like theirs counter reductive portrayals of Filipino men as secondary or submissive. Instead, they reveal partners capable of leadership through empathy. Liliana's perspective matters because it reflects lived experience rather than abstract praise. Her admiration was not based on novelty, but on years of shared life. This authenticity resonates with audiences seeking substance beyond stereotypes. As migration and intercultural relationships become more common, such narratives provide alternative frameworks for understanding masculinity and partnership. They show that strength can be quiet, influence mutual, and success shared. Their journey also highlights the importance of mutual respect across professional and personal domains. By maintaining clear boundaries and transparent communication, they avoided pitfalls that undermine trust. This discipline reflects values deeply ingrained in Filipino culture, where reputation and integrity carry weight beyond individual desire. Such discipline does not restrict love. It protects it. Their ability to separate roles while honoring connection offers a model for navigating complexity with grace. This approach reinforces why Filipino men are often seen as reliable partners in environments that demand emotional maturity. As their story circulates, it resonates not because it promises fantasy, but because it affirms possibility. It suggests that love rooted in patience can flourish across cultures, hierarchies, and expectations. It reframes success as shared growth rather than individual achievement. Filipino men, often overlooked in global dating narratives, emerge here not as exceptions, but as examples of values increasingly sought after. In a world fatigued by instability, such steadiness feels revolutionary. In the end, this story is not about nationality, workplace roles, or cultural comparison. It is about character revealed over time. Francis and Liliana's partnership illustrates how respect, patience, and emotional intelligence can transcend difference and redefine attraction. Their marriage did not succeed despite cultural diversity, but because of how that diversity was approached with humility and care. This is why Filipino men are described as winning, not through dominance or spectacle, but through relationships that endure. Their quiet consistency becomes a powerful statement in a noisy world, reminding us that lasting love is built not on grand gestures, but on daily acts of respect, kindness, and shared purpose.